Hey guys, welcome to the Field of 68 YouTube channel. If you like what you see here, hit that subscribe button and you'll get more college basketball content just like this.
After year 15 as the head coach at Kentucky, uh, Kentucky AD Mitch Barnhart had to put out a statement today confirming that John Calipari will indeed be back for his 16th season as the head coach. Sweeney, it is 2024, and we are living in a world where the Kentucky athletic director has to confirm that John Calipari is not being fired. Imagine having this conversation 5 years ago. Imagine having this conversation. I don't think we ever could have even pictured it.
It's crazy, right? I think really, before the pandemic, the only way you thought that Cal would ever leave would be for an NBA job. And, obviously has resisted overtures in the past. But, with where we are now, I think it was necessary. I think there needed to be a clear statement of what the direction was after the loss, Thursday night against Oakland. Look, at the end of the day, I think this is probably the right move just because I don't think Kentucky had a plan for who's next. And I don't think there's a lot of good candidates right now. I think trying to do this so quickly would have been really, really challenging. But I also think like this sets the table for a true hot seat year for John Calipari, Kentucky in 2024-25. And it's be fascinating to see how he approaches that.
Isn't that a problem, though, Sweeney? Isn't that a problem that after a year where you lose in the second round as a 6 seed, a year removed from getting upset as a number 2 seed in the first round of the tournament, a year removed from not even making the NCAA tournament in 2021, isn't it a little bit problematic that Kentucky was in a situation where they didn't have a choice? You know what I mean? Where they didn't have a plan of action if this team built with freshmen happened to lose earlier in the NCAA tournament than expected.
Look, I wonder if this is different if Kentucky doesn't have a pretty good February and early March. Yes, they had some surprising losses, but they won at Auburn and they won at Tennessee. I don't think anyone entered this NCAA tournament thinking there was a world where Cal was on the hot seat in a week, right? And that's what happened. I think, look, part of this is also just the state of the carousel and where we are. How many names out there, and we're going to talk about Louisville as well, how many big names out there will satisfy what Kentucky wants, right? I mean, Scott Drew is the obvious name because of just going through this with Louisville. Go on Twitter and read what Kentucky fans say about Scott Drew. Kentucky fans are not excited about the concept of Scott Drew, and maybe there's not going to be a hire that could excite them. But I just don't know how you can be prepared to fill this job because it is such a big vacancy, and most of the A-list and even B-list coaches in college basketball have massive contracts that are tough to get out of. So look, I think it makes sense to have to go through a year where you're preparing like you might have to make a move and you can get a better sense of what the market really is. But yeah, look, should Kentucky have been more prepared for an outcome like this? Maybe. I mean, look, the signs were there. As good as their highs were this season, this Kentucky team was never consistent enough to believe in this NCAA tournament.
You say that, but Tyler, I had Kentucky in the national title game in my bracket, and so I want to know from your perspective on this, Tyler. When you are a player and you're dealing with a coaching change, and there's smoke around whether or not that coach is going to continue, how does that affect the locker room? I know you probably didn't deal with it in college, but I'm sure at some point along the way in your travels in the professional ranks, you played for a coach that was on the quote unquote hot seat. How does that impact the players on the team?
Yeah, psychologically can have a big impact. And, the situation is very difficult as a player because, especially in college, you look at the coach kind of as a leader and also somebody that can provide you with hope and also a blueprint. What Kentucky did today, I think, is good. They came out and said, hey, we're rolling with Cal. And one thing about Cal you got to give him credit for is he's really good salesman. I mean, he is a smooth talker, and that's one of his pluses is he's a very good recruiter. And so I think Cal has a way with his kids of, talking to them and having a big impact from that perspective. But also you've got to think about some of these kids that had this disappointing year, especially, I wasn't too fond of some of Cal's comments that he made post game after they lost to Oakland. Some guys didn't hit shots, something like that. And the thought that a young team that didn't play defense all year was just going to turn it around and flip a switch in the tournament, as I was thinking, was pretty comical. That's tough for an older team to do, and it's tough for a very talented team to do. And Kentucky was inconsistent defensively all year, and at times, there was a post-game press conference. Cal said, "Don't come at my kids, come at me." Well, he almost went after his kids after they lost in the tournament, which is super shocking. But no, I don't think that Kentucky was going to move from Cal, especially with that buyout. And I do think that he'll be able to finesse his way and talk his kids into kind of buying into the program and switching things up.
Does he need to change what he's doing, though, Tyler? Can he continue to build around one-and-done freshmen when it's proven that in an era where guys get fifth and sixth years, when it's proven that in an era where the transfer portal is allowing players to be eligible immediately and NIL is keeping more talented guys around for longer, can he just sit here and just say, hey, you know what, we're going to bet on the best 18 and 19-year-olds in the world?
No, that formula is outdated. You need to hit the portal, and you need to get older guys. I think there's a huge value in 25-year-olds. Even 26-year-olds. I think physically, their experience and what they bring to the table, to me, outweighs an 18, 19-year-old kid, because physically they're much stronger, and also that experience and their basketball knowledge is by far more advanced. And also, the youth isn't winning in the tournament right now. We've seen that.
Sweeney, how old are you?
24.
How old is Cormac Ryan?
I think he's about my age. Yeah.
Yeah, he's 25. So, there's guys. Sweeney's been doing this for 3 years, and there's guys that are older than Sweeney still playing for some of the biggest programs in college basketball. If you're Sweeney, I'm putting you in a position. You got to be the advisor for Coach Cal. What do you tell him to do? How do you change what's happening? How do you turn this thing around? Because that's going to be the single biggest story hanging over everything Kentucky in college basketball for probably the next 365 days, if we're going to be honest. This is the fourth straight day on After Dark we've talked about it.
I think, obviously, the first task is seeing if you can keep Reed Sheppard, right? I mean, look, him returning to Kentucky would be massive. I don't know if they can pull that off, but, I know Cal likes to be, don't waste your draft stock, go when you're ready type thing, but, I think if you're Cal, you got to make as strong a push as you can to get Reed back. And I think from there, I would build the way that North Carolina built this year. Hansbrough can attest to this. This is not the most talented team North Carolina's had. I think you could argue that this North Carolina team is less talented than last year's North Carolina team, but it's a group that fits together. The words you hear out of this Carolina team all year long has been role allocation, right? Everybody's bought into who they are. You have a Cormac Ryan or a Harrison Ingram who doesn't need the ball in his hands to be successful, who's willing to buy in and do the little things, who can hit outside shots and space the floor for that nucleus that they have. And I think if I'm Kentucky, right, I don't have to get away from having freshmen. I don't have to if I want my best player to be a Rob Dillingham type or a Reed Sheppard type or whatever that may be, the Knox kid that's coming in, Carter Knox, who's phenomenal, right? You can still build with one or two stars. I think the problem that Kentucky's had is they haven't had guys that fit into roles. And I thought this year, things got more complicated the more bodies got added to the mix. And Kentucky, I almost felt like Cal got decision paralysis this year where, all right, which big do I want? Do I want Onyenso? Do I want Ivisic? Do I want Aaron Bradshaw? Do I want Trey Mitchell? Cal had too many options for his own good. I mean, this team was at its best early in the season when he had 8 guys and he had to play that rotation. So I think if I'm Kentucky, I approach it less is more. Go get guys, go get some culture guys in the portal who have played high-level basketball, who've won big games, surround them or surround your current nucleus with that. And if you lose a freshman along the way, that's okay, right? It's not about accumulating the most talent in 2024-25 college basketball. It's about building a team.
Yeah, I don't think that being able to have 5 freshmen on the floor is something that's going to work. I mentioned this the other night, but I keep going back to, take UConn, for example, right? They have a freshman in a very important role, but it is a freshman. It is one. They got a guy coming off the bench that is getting 10 minutes a game right now, Jalen Stewart, and that's it. Everybody else is either upperclassmen or sophomores that have come back to school. Hell, they got a sophomore lottery pick that came back. And if you're going to do that, if you're Coach Cal and you're going to say, all right, we're going to try to get Reed Shepard back. We're going to find a way to bring back a couple of these big freshmen. We're going to go hit the portal and bring in a couple of third and fourth, maybe even fifth year guys, right? And then supplement that with like 2 or 3 freshmen that are going to sit there and play a role, and then maybe develop to the point in March where, Stephen Castle is now a guy that can take over a game when needed. He wasn't that as a freshman, or it wasn't that at the start of the season. That's the way that you have to do it. And I will also just say, like, at some point, you're going to have to rip that Band-Aid off, because I don't see an old dog learning a new trick in this situation, right? Like a leopard doesn't change their spots. I don't know how many cliches I can throw at you about that, but I think at some point you're going to have to make that decision, and the buyout's going to be big and the divorce is going to be painful. But I think that that's something that we all know is eventually coming. And the sooner that you do it, and the sooner that you make the move and start moving forward, the better off it's going to be. Does that mean you can afford to pay $50 million in buyouts before paying the $6 million a year you're going to have to pay? Well, you know what? Kentucky fans are deep pocketed. And since everybody in college basketball is begging fans to be able to fund NIL and all of this other stuff, why not keep reaching out to them? Because that's something's going to have to change. I just don't see, like, you keep beating your head against the wall in this situation. So we all know where this ending is headed. Let's put it like this. You never get off the hot seat, right? You're always on the hot seat. Look at Brad Rennell. He's never gotten off. He's been to 2 Sweet 16s in like the last 5 years, and he's always on the hot seat, like every single year. You can look at guys like Josh Pastner when he was at Memphis, right? Like he'd be on the hot seat, he'd have a good year, but he'd never get off the hot seat. It was always one bad year away from having people question whether or not you need to get fired again. And Cal had his best year in like 5 years this year. Losing the first round, everybody wants you gone. Never get off.
Thank you for watching the Field of 68. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, hit that like button, share this link with your friends, or check out the description for some other places that you can consume Field of 68 content.